We gathered under the tables and just listened to non-stop gunfire happening right outside the door.
It's like playing Russian roulette with your kids. There's no way you can protect them anymore.
If there's even one life that can be saved, then we've got an obligation to try.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
Responsible gun owners absolutely have the right to keep and bear arms in a safe and responsible manner.
The NRA has blood on its hands. We need gun control now.
Joining us to discuss the issues surrounding the gun control debate from the perspective of the passionate gun owner is Chuck Nesby, firearms instructor and a manager here at the Nova Firearms store in Falls Church, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And Jerry Suter, author of American Shooter, a personal history of gun culture in the United States. Chuck, you were telling us the guns are flying off the shelves since Newtown, since Barack Obama started talking about guns. You have a sticker, in fact.
Yes.
Barack Obama, #1 gun salesman.
He's been the top salesman of the year.
Who is buying these guns?
I'd say in the so-called assault weapons, which I don't believe exist in the civilian market, 40% of the market is women and senior citizens. Why? Because they're simple to operate.
What reason do they give for buying these guns?
Personal protection. And the second reason they give is they fear their government. They fear their government taking away their rights to own a firearm. Second, or third, tertiary, none of the semi-automatic firearms that you can buy that look military in style are issued to any military in the world. The AR series and the AK series of firearms that you see today in the civilian market are all semi-automatic. They do not have a 3-round burst or a full automatic capability. That has been regulated by under the National Firearms Act since 1934. If you want to get a full automatic weapon or firearm...
Right, but you can still get a semi-automatic with a high-capacity magazine or clip, can't you?
Well, a high-capacity magazine, what difference does that make? High capacity is what, by definition? Some people say 7 rounds in New York, some people say 10 rounds, some people say 30 rounds, 14 rounds, whatever. That number varies, okay? You can change magazines out very quickly. Is it going to limit the number of Newtown school shootings? No, a person can walk in there with 10 magazines, change them very quickly before he's interdicted.
What do you make of the way that the discussion is handled by politicians when they talk about a common sense approach, for example? Does that help you understand where they're coming from, or does that seem a little patronizing, perhaps?
I think the whole concept of gun control is two things. I think it's a fallacious argument as far as the idea of what is an assault rifle. Everybody's perception of an assault rifle is something that everyone kind of understands what it is. It doesn't look like a hunting rifle. It doesn't look like a shotgun. It's its own unique style of gun, regardless of what you call it. And the idea of who has the ability to take weapons away from people, as far as the government is concerned, I think that's another thing that the NRA has beat the drum to get fear. Fear is a big thing as far as the National Rifle Association, and I've been a supporter of them for years. And when they made that wrong turn back out in the 60s and 70s and all of a sudden got politicized, the argument, that's when they started to get in trouble. And beating the drum for fear and the idea to be able to just make an argument that, oh, you could change magazines really fast and before you're interdicted, that's all military jargon. That's the kind of stuff that you talk about when you're going into a combat situation.
But who does the NRA represent, then? Is it a gun manufacturer's lobby now rather than the gun owners' union?
If you're asking me, I would say yes. I'd say the gun manufacturer and the NRA are hand in hand, which is not a bad thing. it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's a matter of how they use the idea between what is a weapon and what is a sporting arm, or even a self-defense arm. There's that difference in there that you've got to always honor, and I think more familiarity with firearms at an early age, that helps people understand.
Well, Chuck, I mean, what about that then? I mean, clearly, with 300 million guns in circulation, they're not going anywhere. I mean, even if the government wanted to take them away, they couldn't.
Approximately one gun for every person in the United States.
What about a public health approach, then, using pragmatic, science-based policy to prevent injury, to look at gun design, to look at access, and just to the best of the ability to try and prevent people from getting killed? Wouldn't that be acceptable?
I think that's the goal of all of us. However, as I recall, I think cocaine and heroin are illegal. Yet people seem to have no problem finding it.
But you can take a public health policy to drugs which is successful as opposed to a criminal approach to drugs.
I'm just saying that trying to eliminate something like that, bad people want to do bad things, they're going to get access to it regardless of what you do. What you want to do is minimize the problem so that you can manage it to an acceptable level.
But will that discussion be acceptable given how fraught, how some would suggest how closed the NRA, for example, leadership is anyway, to even discussing some of these issues because they think it's one step to tyranny?
Well, there are some things that the NRA does that I don't agree with, but there are some things that I do agree with. For instance, the NRA's suggestion that we get a national database of people that are have mentally ill problems, I have real problem with, because branding people with a label that is an inexact science can lead to some innocent people being falsely accused of something. Now, but they're concerned that erosion of our Second Amendment rights, if you give a politician, what's a politician's objective? If you give a politician an inch, he takes a mile. His objective is to get reelected. He's going to say whatever he has to say to get reelected, regardless of what the facts or data really reveal. These guns that they're talking about restricting access to right now are used in very, very few crimes. Okay, I think the semi-automatic rifle may be used in 1% to 2% of crimes in the entire country. The handguns, because they can be concealed, are a lot more readily available for you committing crimes, and bad people, when they get them, need to be stopped. Now, you can stop handgun crime almost overnight in the United States. The will just doesn't exist to do it. How do you do that? Simple. Simply make the penalty too harsh to commit the crime. If you commit a crime and you're convicted of a handgun crime in the court of law, it's mandatory life in prison, no parole. That would drive handgun crime down quite a bit.
Well,
Jerry?
No, I agree. It certainly would be a deterrent, but I also think it's a paper tiger. I don't believe that it's something that could ever even be thought of because of just the penal institutions of the United States couldn't handle the volume. What happened in Prohibition back when they tried to legislate morality and make it illegal to drink alcohol in the United States? They made drunks out of a lot of people that had never taken a drink in their lives. The minute you start to put heavy draconian laws on anything in this country, the guns go into the closets, they go under the beds, they go, people still hang on to them, but sure. But that's not really a way to go at it. The way to go at it is popular demand that something be done, and you have the more people that you have saying, okay, we have to come to a solution on this, that will drive the legislators, and that's where you start the root problem, or the root causes of the problem.
Chuck Nesby, the President has said repeatedly he has no intention of coming after everyone's guns, and the Supreme Court has now repeatedly upheld the individual's right to bear arms. So what are some gun owners so concerned about?
Well, I think the gun owners are concerned about the fact that they don't believe the president, quite frankly, and they believe that their Second Amendment rights to own firearms are being threatened.
But what's the basis of that fear, given the assurances that we've had repeatedly?
assurances from the government have been rather short-lived. We have a history in this country of abusing the law whenever it's to the government's convenience. I'll give you a couple of examples. The internment of the Japanese during World War II at gunpoint. Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears, forcing the American Indians, after winning a Supreme Court case, to vacate their land at gunpoint and march them to Oklahoma. For years, blacks in the South were feared by the predominant white public because if they became armed, they would outnumber the slave owners of the South. So, given those things that have happened in American history, there's the concern that it's not beyond a very large government to take advantage of them. I believe it was Thomas Jefferson that said that a government big enough to give you everything is big enough to take everything.
Jerry Souter, thank you very much. Chuck Nesby, thanks for helping us understand some of the complexities of this debate. That's all for this edition of Inside Story. Join us for our next edition, where we'll look at the politics of gun control and of the National Rifle Association. But that's all for now.